listeners, Movie Miss here, and the episode you are about to listen to is one of two episodes that cover the same film. I thought I would give you a warning because this is a format that you are not used to hearing on the show. This was a trial run back in season 1 when my co-host was Nikki Flixx. We weren't really wanting to heavily debate movies where one of us liked a film and one of us hated the film. We didn't feel like that would be a whole lot of fun, so we were giving this solo episode a trial run. We covered 4 films in this fashion, and I will be releasing them into the main feed. What happened was I would pick a film that I pretty much hated. I recorded an episode, a full episode, doing a plot walkthrough and scene dissection, talking about in depth my thoughts and feelings on everything happening. And then Nikki would take the opposing opinion and opposing views and do the same thing on her full-length episode. She would do a full plot walkthrough, scene dissection, discussing positive themes and notes and kind of defending the film in a way. So we just thought that would be an easier format for discussing movies that I really didn't care for. I will be dropping both opposing episodes at the same time, so you can choose which one you want to listen to, or if you want the back and forth, listen to both and see maybe one of us will sway you to the dark side. With me, I have cookies. Come to the dark side. With all of that said, here is the episode. Enjoy.
It used to be that calling a film a turkey was an insult. Nowadays, there's actually an audience for some of the worst movies ever made.
Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
Now we're talking turkey.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Welcome to Let's Talk Turkeys. This is Nikki Flixx. I will be flying solo today, discussing the film It Follows. This movie was released in March of 2015, written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, a artistic genius in my opinion. It's not technically a turkey. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 95%. It went over very well with critics, which makes sense because the movie itself is not meant to be taken literally. It is metaphorical. It is an analogy, and if you see it that way, it really resonates on a lot of levels, and the critics look for those things, and they definitely get it, which is not normal with quote-unquote horror movies, for the critics to absolutely love them. The audience score on this film, however, is just 66. I would say maybe half the people who saw this movie don't get it. They're not understanding what the metaphor is and what the ideas behind the metaphor, what is Mitchell really trying to say are. They're taking it at face value. It's either about a STD following you around, or it's about the dangers of having sex too young or with the wrong person, the dangers of premarital sex. If that's what you're taking from the movie, of course you're going to hate it because it really doesn't make any sense. If you see it through the lens of a metaphor, it starts to make a whole lot of sense, and it's actually a really intriguing piece of art. So we start with a stationary camera shot of Annie as she's running from the house in her heels. She looks like a teenager playing dress up in mommy's clothes. This is really an important thing that we're going to see a lot in the movie, which is young people who look like they're sort of stuck in between childhood and adulthood. The choice by Mitchell to have this stationary shot where, from our perspective of the camera on the street, we have a limited view of what's going on. We can't move. We can't follow Annie into the house. We're feeling very helpless. We are stuck seeing everything that's going on from this one perspective in this shot, and that's something that we're going to see recurring throughout the movie. It's a really brilliant artistic choice on Mitchell's part, in my opinion. So the sight of Annie dead, this really violent attack has happened to her. We don't know what possibly could have done this to her body, but it's grotesque. It's one of the grossest things in the movie, the most graphic. It's a very striking image, and I love that we just are seeing this awful act of violence after the fact, right off the bat. It sets the tone for how dangerous everything to come is going to be. The fact that it could lead to an end result like what we're seeing has happened to Annie. So then we move to Jay in her backyard, and again, we are, from our perspective of the camera, out in the street, and it's a slow zoom in on her as if we are some sort of peeping Tom peering into her world. She is totally unaware of our presence, that we are watching her. She's not at all thinking about it. She's in her own world. She's worried about getting into the pool, so she's naive that we are there. Again, this is saying a lot about her character, and it's pretty important to realize she is going about her thing. She's getting in the pool, doing what she likes to do. She's somewhat aware of her surroundings. She's noticing the birds, the squirrels, the ants, even the neighbor boys who are peeking in at her from across the fence. But she seems sort of enchanted by everything that's going on and a little amused by it. So she's not really sensing the reality of the world around her or the dangers of it. So she moves into the house, and this is where we meet the supporting characters. We've got her younger sister Kelly, and I'm putting them at probably 19 and 17 years old. That's seems about right to me. And then we have their buddy Paul, who clearly has known them both since childhood and also clearly has a lot of affection, maybe even love for Jay, unrequited at this point. And then we meet Yara, who is sitting on the end of the couch with her glasses that look like she stole them off Dad's nightstand. They're too big for her. They don't fit. She looks like, again, a child trying to appear as an adult. And she's reading something very adult, which is The Idiot by Dostoevsky, but she's reading it on this very childish looking device. It looks like something you would give your 8-year-old so that they could walk around and read their little stories on it and pretend that it's a real cell phone. I feel like the choice to have this weird little Kindle type seashell device is definitely intentional on Mitchell's part, just to sort of say she's looking at something very adult, such as The Idiot by Dostoevsky, on a very childlike device, through very childlike eyes. And she flat out says, I'm reading The Idiot, I don't understand it yet, but it's about Paul. So she is flat out telling you, I'm seeing this worldly, complicated information through the lens of a child, and I don't quite understand it yet. This is a big part of what I think this film is really about, and she is flat out telling you about that. If you go on the internets and research, if you haven't read The Idiot, what it is and what it's about, this provides a whole lot of insight into what Mitchell is going for by referencing it. So the title, The Idiot, is an ironic reference to the central character of the novel, Prince Mishkin. Prince Mishkin is a young man whose goodness, open-hearted simplicity, and guilelessness lead many of the more worldly characters he encounters to mistakenly assume that he lacks intelligence and insight. That is the book Yara is reading. That tells you so much about what Mitchell is going for with this story. These people are very young. They're not very wise to the world. They're not quite adults yet. And the outside world, people who are more world-weary, will view them as naive or even stupid, even idiots, for not understanding how things work in the real world. That's what this movie's really about. You see a mother at the table, assuming that it is Jay and Kelly's mother. We don't quite know at this point because she's completely unaware of these people in her house. She's not paying any attention to them at all. We only see the back of her head. This is something that recurs throughout the first half of the movie, where adults seem to be completely checked out, only partially existent in the world that we are seeing. Heads turned, or just torsos without the head in the frame of the shot. It's a definite intentional thing being done by Mitchell to give you the idea that the adults are not a part of what is happening, or they're choosing to turn away from it, choosing to be uninvolved. Everything that is happening on the level, the literal height and perspective of these teenagers. And the adults are sort of an afterthought, and they're doing that by choice. This is something really important that continues throughout the movie, and it's telling you a lot about the point that we're getting at here. So if you look around the house, you're seeing really old things mixed with new things. We've got old tube TVs with rabbit ear antennas, but then you've got Yara's Kindle shell phone, I guess is what you could call it. Some of the cars we've seen are brand new, current in the 2000s. Some of them are also something from the 70s or 80s. There's a mixture of styles and decades happening in the environment that doesn't seem to quite make sense. And I think, again, this is a really intentional thing done by Mitchell to give you the feeling that no matter when your adolescence and childhood were, no matter when this story is taking place, it's something everyone goes through. It's relatable in any decade. So I think that's the reason why we're seeing a mixture of what appears to be really old technology with really new technology. So Jay is getting ready for her date. She's in her bedroom, and super important, we see a photo of her father on her bedroom mirror. He is dark hair, bearded man, and it's a photo of him with her as a small child. We have not seen the father, but we barely even saw the mother. So at this point, you're not sure, is that her father? Should I even be noticing this? Is he around? Are we going to see him in the house in the movie? Having seen the whole movie, you know, no, he is absent from the story. He is not present. So in hindsight, this is really important. He clearly has not been a part of her life since she was this age, since she was a small child. And this is going to be super important later on. So noticing that helps you kind of pick up on what is really going on here. So Jay goes to the movies. She's on a date with Hugh, who she makes a point of saying is 21 years old. He is a couple years older than her, more wise to the world, more mature. Looks like a little bit of a bad boy. He's got his leather jacket, but they're doing something very teenager-like, which is going to the movies, and they're playing the trade game while they're in line. Jay suggests this. It's literally looking around at the people, thinking about what their lives might be like, who they might be, and wondering if you would want to trade lives with one of them. And then the other person guesses who you would want to trade with. So super important to notice this. Hugh says he would choose to be a small child because of the level of carefree and no responsibilities that a small child like this has. You could be carried around from one place to the other in dad's arms. You could be wetting yourself inside your diaper and nobody notices. He is talking about yearning to go back to the innocence and irresponsibility of being a child. So they already made it a point to say he's 21 years old, but then they're showing you that is someone who is older and maybe wiser, more world-weary than Jay is. He is looking around and yearning for the innocence of childhood. Jay guesses wrong because she's not thinking like this. She's not thinking like he does. She's thinking from the perspective of a child. So it doesn't occur to her that you would want to go back to your childhood. So later on, after Jay and Hugh have consensual sex in Hugh's car, we see Jay sort of laying across the back seat of the car. She explains the idea of being a kid and looking forward to growing up and all the fun, neat things that you're going to do as a teenager, as an adult. She talks about how she used to fantasize about riding around in cars and cute boys. She looked forward to finding a cute boy to walk around holding hands with. This was one of her little childhood girl dreams. This is super important. When we move to the end of the film, this idea will come back again. Now that she is technically an adult, she has clearly had sex at least once, we know of, with Hugh, and we find out later that this is not her quote-unquote first time. This is not her losing her virginity. That's the idea that a lot of people seem to get wrong, is that she gave it up and then here are the consequences. She later says that she's already had sex before this moment with Hugh, so that's not what this is about at all. But now that she is dating an older man and she's had this hot consensual sex with him in his car, now that she's an adult, quote unquote, it's not what she imagined. And she says, you get here and then you have no idea where to go. So you finally get to the age of 18, 19, and then you realize you have no idea what you're doing. So a good question that a lot of people would come up with at this point, if they're taking everything at face value, is this seems really confusing. Hugh didn't seem like such a bad guy. So why doesn't he just sit her down right there in the car and say, hey, I need to talk to you about something? Why the sudden assault and chloroform? I can tell you that if you're looking at the whole thing as a metaphor, it's pretty obvious why he does this. At this point, we are unaware, but later on we find out that he is not actually 21 years old. He is the same age as Kelly and Paul and Yara. He's a high school kid. So this is where his his actual maturity level is showing, and that's why he's handling the situation in a really messed up way. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's coming from a place of emotional immaturity. He's in a scary situation, and his behavior is definitely not appropriate. It's very self-centered, it's very immature. This is a peek into that, and that's why he's going about this in a really weird way, by knocking her out and tying her up, traumatizing her, putting her in this frightening situation where she's not going to be able to take in what he's telling her. He's going to put her in this situation and then lay everything on her, tell her exactly what's really going on. Such a stupid way to handle it, and it shows his immaturity and his self-centeredness, and that's why it's being done in that way. So he's got her tied up, and then he's trying to tell her about it and what's going to happen to her, but she's not really taking it in very well because she's worried about struggling to get out of the binds that he's got her in and the way she's tied up with the wheelchair. So to me, the whole thing that's happening right now between Hugh and Jay is kind of representing that it's really a mistake to not give your children the real facts about how sex works, the real facts about how life works, how the real world works, until they're already 18 years old and being confronted with life in the real world. It leaves you unprepared and you handle things the wrong way. Even gonna handle things in ways that end up becoming traumatic, like the trauma, the PTSD that Jay is dealing with after this event that's happening. It would be so much better to prepare kids for reality slowly, all along the way throughout their childhood. The absent father in Jay's life definitely would represent the lack of guidance and information and parenting that she's struggled with since she was a kid. So the first person that Jay sees as it is a naked woman that she doesn't seem to recognize. This is a completely naked woman approaching. Perhaps the woman is appearing naked because Jay herself is nearly naked. She's in her underwear, tied to a chair. She's feeling very vulnerable and exposed, so the appearance of a naked woman goes right in line with that. The use of the single camera shot where the camera is attached to the wheelchair and moves with it is forcing you to feel like you can only see things from Jay's perspective in this scary moment that is happening. You'd like to be able to see, where is this woman? How close is she getting? But you can't. You're stuck seeing things from Jay's perspective. So again, I think super smart use of the style of the shot by Mitchell. So after all of this, we cut to Paul, Yara, and Kelly are playing Old Maid on the front porch. And if you take a look at this shot, they look like 8-year-olds having a sleepover. They're all sitting crisscross, which everybody, realizes once you reach a certain age, you kind of physically can't sit like that anymore, and who would want to? It's not comfortable. They appear very childlike. They're hunched over, sitting crisscross. They're drinking soda pop like kids do, playing a child's game, Old Maid. And the fact that they're playing Old Maid, I feel, is relevant. They make it a point to show you the card with her picture on it. Everybody knows that the idea of an old maid is, the old lady who dies unloved, single, and alone. So the idea of being afraid that you will not find love in life and you will die alone is definitely being represented with the game of Old Maid. So Yara starts to read aloud from The Idiot for a moment. She says something to the effect of, if your house is crumbling and falling apart or being destroyed, you yearn to sit down, close your eyes, and just wait for it to be over. So the idea that if your reality, if your world is falling apart, your instinct would be to close your eyes and just wait for it to happen, feel helpless again, not do anything about it. So the idea of helplessness is once again being reiterated. If the house represents the ideas for your future that you had as a kid, like the ideas that Jay had about romance and boys when she was a kid, if the house represents your plans for the future, the universe or the real world can come in and destroy your naive plans, your naive ideas about how things work at any moment. And that's a really scary feeling as you're becoming 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. So Hugh dumps Jay half naked in the middle of the street. She's now very vulnerable and is in danger. The police arrive, and it's very odd that they don't take her inside the house. She's sitting outside, wrapped in a blanket, and she's crouched down on the porch. So I feel like the idea is, even though the police have arrived, she's still not feeling safe and comfortable. And it's really weird. The policeman is standing up above her instead of sitting down with her or getting down on her level. Again, the idea that you can't see the policeman's head. Adults seem to exist outside the reality of what is happening to the teenager. So he's there, but he's not on her level. He's not putting himself there. He's not getting involved in what is actually happening to Jay. She feels very alone. So when Jay is in the hospital, we again have this slow zoom in on her as she's lying in her hospital bed, reminiscent of the slow zoom as she was getting into the pool in the beginning of the movie. However, we are now closer to her, and she is looking in our direction. She's peering out the window as we're peering into the window. So she's becoming more aware of our presence as the viewer. She's becoming more aware of the outside world because of what has happened to her has started to open her eyes. Then we see a doctor and a nurse milling around the room, milling around the hospital. And again, just like with the policeman, their heads are intentionally not visible in the shot. So even though these people are here to help her, they're still not really engaged in her perspective, her world, her point of view. And they're not providing a whole lot of help. Later on, we see Greg's mother, the neighbor, is sitting with Jay and Kelly's mother discussing what happened to Jay. You still can't quite see their mother's face. You're just seeing the corner of her forehead. And they're sitting there drinking wine, which, again, these are the adults that are supposed to be in the situation, but they are detached from it and they're drinking to deal with their own feelings about what's going on. They're checked out. Instead, what we're doing is zoning in on the family photos on the living room wall. They all appear very disjointed. There's no photos of the family as a whole unit. You're seeing one of the girls or the other girl with the grandparents. There are no photos of the father to be seen. The only photo we've seen of the father is on Jay's mirror. That makes me think this is a divorce situation, or he left them. He was abusive. For whatever reason, as a family, they never took photos together, and the mother has chosen to not display any photos of him throughout the house. So clearly there's a big problem with Dad's presence in their lives, and he is no longer there, not even in photo form on the living room wall. Then we cut to English class, and the teacher is reading a poem by T.S. Eliot called The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. In this moment, we're listening to the poem for a short period of time, and then we're focused in on Jay, who sees an old woman approaching as it. She's recognizing, oh no, it's back. Outside, she sees an old woman in a nightgown walking across. But if we stop for a moment and talk just a little bit about the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, it's very relevant here. It's the first professionally published poem by Eliot, and the poem structure was heavily influenced by his extensive reading of many other authors he's influenced by, as well as the Bible, William Shakespeare. It has all sorts of... It's a mishmash of influences, much like a kid who's a teenager reaching out for sources of information and things to inspire them and grow their knowledge with. The poem itself is described as a drama of literary anguish. It is a dramatic interior monologue of an urban man stricken with feelings of isolation and an incapability for decisive action. The poem is said to epitomize frustration and impotence of the modern individual and represent their thwarted desires and disillusionment. That's exactly what the story is about. That's exactly what we've been seeing, these teenagers, these people who are transitioning into adulthood. This is what they're confronting, and that's what the poem's about. So it makes perfect sense. It goes right in line with it. It's yet another clue dropped by Mitchell to let you know what's really going on. The poem itself is also very well known for using illusion, things that are symbolic. And that's one of the things that's striking about the poem. That's exactly what Mitchell is doing with his movie. So again, this is the biggest tip of all dropped by Mitchell to let you know, hey, this is an illusion. Everything is metaphorical. Everything is symbolic. Please start picking up on that. Don't take it at face value. Super important in the poem is that Prufrock is trying to express some deeper philosophical insight or disillusionment with society, but he fears rejection. again, this is what the teenagers becoming adults are dealing with. Any attempts they make at saying, hey, I'm growing up, hey, I'm an adult, I have a point of view, they're worried about being misunderstood or condescended to or rejected because of their age. So Jay sees the older woman. She gets up and runs out of the classroom, and then we have this really creepy moment where she's running through the hallway and we see the woman is suddenly inside the building and appears from around the corner. This is just like classic horror movie dread, fear, creepiness that is happening. It's very well shot. So Jay then leaves school, goes to the ice cream shop where Paul and Kelly are working. She is sitting hunched over like a little kid in this chair, holding a little cup of chocolate ice cream with rainbow sprinkles. She is reaching to something very childhood, very childish, something that would bring you comfort. Oh, you fell and scraped your knee today? Well, let daddy take you out for some ice cream. That'll make it better. It's a very childish solution to the horrible, more adult experience that she just had with the woman at school. So she doesn't understand how to deal with what's happening to her other than to go to something very childish. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken bone. So Paul and Kelly obviously both genuinely care about her feelings. They're listening to her. They're hearing what she has to say. Kelly suggests maybe we should tell mom, and then the sisters unanimously decide no. Obviously, they are not the kind of girls who grew up feeling that discussing something that they're going through with their mother is going to be in any way useful. So that tells you everything you need to know about what kind of mother they have. Paul offers to stay over at their house. Again, it's obvious he's coming from a place of genuine love and concern for Jay and her well-being. Everyone is sleeping over at their house. We see the girls together in the bathroom, brushing their teeth. Yara's trimming her nails, as if the idea of these three girls being together is motivating them to do some self-care, to take care of themselves. The mother, however, isn't the one taking care of them or helping them take care of themselves. She is checked out. She's passed out in bed. There's cigarettes and wine on the dresser. Just reiterating the fact that she is not a presence in their life. She's not helping them. However, their being together is helping them. So Jay can't sleep. She joins Paul on the couch. They talk about how they were each other's first kiss as children. And then Paul remembers that they once found porno magazines and didn't know what they were looking at. Their parents discovered them, and it was after their parents found them looking at porno magazines that they each got the sex talk. The idea that the parents weren't going to educate them about sex until they were forced to, until they were looking at it themselves, and then the parents had no choice but to talk to them about it. So checked out parenting, lack of education, lack of explaining things and being involved in what your kid is going through has left these kids undereducated and unprepared when it comes to their sexuality. So then the window breaks. Paul goes to investigate. Jay walks through the house. She sees a woman who looks like she's been violently assaulted. She's wetting herself. She's got a torn bra hanging off of her. She's missing a sock. She's dirty, missing teeth, black eye. The image of her is so striking and so grotesque. It's very unsettling, and the way that the whole sequence is shot is very effective. And the sight of this woman this woman has clearly been beaten by something, kind of gives you another insight into where Jay's at. She's feeling so attacked and bruised and beaten up by the experiences she's going through. So Jay runs upstairs, she locks the door. Paul and Kelly get her to let them in. She's struggling with the fact that she saw a woman in the house and they did not. So now she's confirmed that that part of what Hugh told her is definitely true. No one else can see it except her. Yara knocks on the door, they open it, and then a very tall man appears behind her in his underwear. And just the difference in size, this, again, the actress is very short-statured, and this super tall, imposing-looking man scares the hell out of Jay. She runs. What does she do? Just like with the ice cream, she gets on a child's bike and rides to a playground. So again, she's going to a childlike state, using childlike methods to escape the very adult horrors of what she's dealing with, because she doesn't know any better. Her parents haven't prepared her for adulting, essentially. So she runs to the playground, and then Greg, their neighbor, who until now has only been observing them from his own property. He's been on his driveway, in his car, or in his house, looking out at what is happening. So he himself is a self-centered teenager, only seeing things from his own perspective. But now that he sees Jay in this state, he has ventured out of his space and is coming into hers. Clearly they've all known each other a long time, and he does know her. So he doesn't question what she says is happening. He's immediately offering to help. Someone who is on her level is actually not questioning what she's saying and is just offering help, unlike the non-existent cop, the non-existent doctors, the mother who refuses to look at the camera. He's actually on their level, so he's willing to help. So the idea that people your own age who are on your level might be a lifeline you can reach out to kind of struggle through the situation together. So again, it's suggested maybe Jay should talk to their mother, and again reiterated, no, she will freak out. She will not believe what's going on. So the idea that we can go to adults for help is out the window at this point. So now they're leaving to go find Hugh in the city to get more answers from him. They leave the safety of suburbia and their neighborhood and go into the forbidden place, the adult world. They cross 8 Mile into the downtown area. They're doing it as a group. It's not as scary and dangerous as it would be if they were alone. And it is stated several times that they're not normally allowed to go into the city like this. So they're going as a group. They're looking for Hugh. They see his dilapidated house full of what appears to be Home Alone style booby traps. There are soda cans and soda bottles tied to strings to, we assume, alert Hugh to its presence if it were to enter the house. This is such a childlike device that he has come up with, and again we're seeing the soda, which keeps coming up. It's something that represents your mental state. You are approaching life as a child. So clearly something's off with Hugh. At this point we're starting to realize he has a really childish way of dealing with things. So they're going around the house, and then Yara is pulling out her little shell phone, her little shell Kindle thing, and using it as a source of light as she's looking around, like you would with your cell phone, using it as a flashlight. She's a smart girl and she likes to read. The knowledge that she is gaining from reading is literally, at this point, helping her navigate this dark environment. So that is such a clear metaphor. Paul finds old pornos, just like the ones that he was talking about he and Jay had as kids. There's a twin mattress, a stack of pornos, a bunch of wadded tissues in the room. Why would Hugh, a 21-year-old man, be sitting on a twin mattress whacking off to pornos if his goal is to get rid of this curse by sleeping with people? Because he is a child and he is stuck in a childlike way of dealing with the situation he's in. That's why. We're about to find that out. So they find a photo that shows he is obviously in high school. They go to the school, and again you have this rotating camera where we're stuck in one position and the camera is just slowly moving. We see someone approaching, and we wish that we could stop and look at them and investigate for a minute and figure out, is that it? But the camera moves, so we have no choice but to follow the camera. Camera pans around. We see Jay in the office. She's finding out that Hugh is not Hugh. His name is actually Jeff. He is a high school student. They get his address. They leave. They go to his house. They find out that, yes, his name is actually Jeff. So now they're at his house, and we're seeing his house looks just like Jay and Kelly's house, just like Greg's house, this half brick, half wood, on a suburban street. It's very similar. So actually, she was wrong in thinking that he was worldly and wise and coming from the city, coming from a different place. He's actually coming from the same place they're coming from. And then his age is the same as theirs. So his perspective, just as naive and childish as theirs is. She was wrong to assume otherwise. He tricked her. And they're sitting, once again, crisscross drinking soda, to reiterate the fact that these are children. So Jeff says that he's unclear how he even got it. He had a one-night stand with somebody in a bar. This tells you that he is someone who, as a high school student, has a fake ID, is sneaking into bars and sleeping with adult women. He has no idea if that's who he got it from, which tells you no one ever sat him down and said, hey, here's what's going on after having sex with him. He had to come to all these conclusions about what it is and how it works on his own. So everything that he has told Jay about how it works could be incorrect. It's all his interpretation from his point of view. Everything Jay thinks she knows might as well get thrown out the window. She's had the rug pulled out from under her. Welcome to the adult world, sweetie. You have to figure things out on your own if you've been underinformed. Again, the same idea as what we've been picking up on the whole time is being laid out right in front of you. So now they're driving down the street toward the lake house after leaving Jeff's. They're in Greg's car. We see the street is completely covered with leaves. It's this really gorgeous shot, all the fall colors, and you can't even see the street anymore. Fall has arrived. Fall is a transitional period. So they're transitioning as they're going down the street from this naive, childlike stance on what's happening to seeing things from the adult perspective. We have to start from scratch and figure out what's really going on. Them driving down this leaf-covered street is literally them transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So they get to the beach, and rather than drinking soda, suddenly they're all drinking beer. What do you know? They've gone from childhood to adulthood. No longer are they sitting crisscross wearing childlike clothing, all doing the same thing. They're sipping beer. Everybody is doing their own thing. You start to notice the clothing options for each character has changed somewhat, where it seems a little more expressive of their personality. Everybody's sitting in different positions, doing different things. We see Yara approaching Jay from behind, and then as the camera pans around, again, we suddenly see, wait, Yara's out in the water. So the Yara behind Jay, not really Yara. It's fake Yara. It's it appearing as Yara. This is the first time that we're seeing it appear as someone Jay knows. It's also the first time we see it have physical contact with her as it grabs her hair. This is such a scary moment, like takes you straight into haunted house, possession, ghost type feeling, where it picks her up by the hair. There's chairs flying. Paul gets thrown. So not only is it someone she knows, it's physically interacting with her, it is able to physically affect the people around her. This is the first time that we're seeing what a real threat and danger this is. Now that they've moved into the adult world, they're getting what the totality of the situation is. So they run and they hide in the lake house. Jay finds a gun and shoots fake Yara with it. Fake Yara gets right back up anyway. They close the door. There's a window up really high on the door. Suddenly the tall man appears again. And I think that's done because if it were still appearing as Yara or still appearing as anyone else, they wouldn't be tall enough to be visible through this window. So even though the perspective has changed, it is adapting itself to fit whatever the environment is. So if Jay thinks she's figured something out, it's going to adapt itself to get around what she thinks she's figured out. I think that's the idea behind the tall man and the window. There's a hole kicked in the bottom of the door. It suddenly appears as a small child, one of the little neighborhood boys from Jay and Kelly's neighborhood, because it's easier for a child to get down and crawl through this hole than it would be for the tall man or a Yara who's been shot. It is adapting really quickly now. So Greg is stuck outside. While they're inside, Jay runs out of the building, and she's followed now by what appears to be a fake Kelly. It is appearing as her sister, trying to get her to turn around, question, is that really Kelly, not run out on her sister and her friends. However, Jay is making a very adult move, which is to remove herself from the situation. It will follow her. She will remain in danger, but try to escape it, and then her sister and friends will be out of danger. So the fact that it's trying to manipulate her by appearing as Kelly is not going to work on her at this point, because she's now thinking quick on her feet, more like an adult. She crashes into a cornfield to avoid hitting a truck, and she wakes up in the hospital with a broken arm. At this point in the movie, we're seeing lots of gratuitous shots of people in the hospital, and if you're not really understanding what's going on, that would seem kind of confusing and like a really weird choice on the director's part. But if you stop and think about the fact that we saw limited adults, we didn't see any other patients, doctors and nurses had no heads when we were in the hospital earlier. So now it's really important to show Jay has moved into the adult world and she's thinking more like an adult. She is now in a world where children and adults are existing in the same shot. We're seeing the faces of parents and children together. We're seeing doctors and nurses' faces. They're looking at each other. Some of them appear to be kind of flirtatious, like there's a sort of sexual chemistry. So she's realizing that children, adults, sexuality, all of it is existing together, finally in the same shot, in the same place. That's the world that she's moved into. She's seeing everything now, and so are we. So then Greg has sex with Jay in her hospital bed, obviously to take away the curse, to put it on himself. She seems very detached. She's looking away from him the entire time. She's clearly not enjoying herself. We know a little later in the movie that this is not their first rodeo. They've actually had sex before. They slept together in high school. So this is doing nothing for her. It's just a means to an end at this point. We do see Paul is a little jealous because he knows that this has happened. We see Greg out flirting with girls, so he's potentially taking it on and then is quickly thinking about passing it off onto someone else. Greg tells Jay that after 3 days, he still hasn't seen anything. And he says it's not that he doesn't believe her, he just isn't seeing anything yet. So at this point, Jay is in the backyard pool again, only this time it's not doing for her what it did at the beginning. She is, again, reaching to this childhood thing that brings her happiness and comfort, and she's not finding it. So she's in the pool, but she seems really uncomfortable this time, and she's preoccupied. She's looking out, wondering if someone's going to come through the gate. The same activity that used to bring her joy doesn't really work for her anymore. So Greg reiterates to Paul, Yara, and Kelly that he still isn't seeing anything. They accuse him of not believing Jay. He says, well, maybe Jay just didn't understand what was happening. So he's losing faith in what Jay was saying, and from his own perspective, he's retreating into his own head and his own world and seeing things from only his point of view. He's still very immature and self-centered. And then he's in his house, which he's in his head, he's in his house. That's clearly what that's meant to represent. So now we see Jay staring out the window. She sees Greg, quote unquote, fake Greg, walking down the street wearing pajamas. It's very obvious very quickly that that's not really Greg. So he approaches the house, he breaks the window and breaks into his own house. She tries to call Greg. He doesn't answer his phone. So again, he's in his house, in his head, in his world, and she's trying to call him, and if only he would reach out and be open to the world and pick up, but he doesn't. So Jay goes running over there. She gets into the house through the broken window, sees Greg's mother naked under her satin robe, knocking on his door. The real Greg opens his door. His mother attacks him. It's not really his mother, it's it as his mother. So from Jay's perspective in the doorway, it looks like the mother is having sex with Greg. But from the opposite view, suddenly we see she's not naked. There's like granny panty action happening. There's some sort of thick underwear, and there's an intentional shot of this to show you there is not sex happening. Jay is in the adult world and is thinking more like an adult, but from her perspective, she is misinterpreting and misunderstanding what's happening. I think that's why this really awkward moment happens where there's confusion on whether there's sex or not between the mother and Greg. Greg is clearly dead, though. So Jay leaves, and she's at the beach, or the lake again. She sees a boat with some guys on it, and she just, without wavering, undresses in a totally non-sensual, non-sexual way and enters the water. We understand that, much like when she decided to sleep with Greg, she is seeing these guys. It's an opportunity. She can use her sex and her sexuality as a way to protect herself, as she's probably going to go seduce these guys and sleep with them. We don't need to see that, though. So we just see her in the car driving home, wet from being in the water. When she gets home, really important to notice, the pool, we see it in the backyard, is now, one of the walls on the side is like bent or broken, and it's empty. So not only is the possibility of her swimming in this little pool and trying to recapture her childhood, not only is it not going to work for her anymore, it's now physically impossible. So then we see her in her room, and Yara and Kelly are sleeping. Paul shows up and tries to suggest to her yet again that he have sex with her, and she passes it to him. He doesn't understand why she would have sex with Greg and not him. He's taking it personally because he's in love with her. She explains she picked Greg because they've done it before, so it wasn't a big deal, and because Greg wasn't afraid. This, if Paul is a little smarter and wiser, is Jay's way of telling him, hey, I actually care about you. I don't really care so much about Greg. She doesn't want to just sleep with Paul because, one, she cares for him and doesn't want to put him in that kind of danger, and two, there would be emotional feelings and attachments. If she slept with Paul, it would mean something. It doesn't mean anything to her to sleep with Greg. Paul's still a little naive and young himself, so he doesn't really pick up on it. He just feels rejected, but we, the audience, can see that's what's really going on. So then Paul reminds her of the first time that they kissed, which gives them an idea. Here comes their plot, their plan that they're going to hatch on how to get rid of it. So we don't quite know what that is yet, but they have an idea. They're outside. They're leaving to go to the public pool in the city. As they're doing this, Jay sees a naked man on the roof of the house as they're backing away. Everyone else in the car is talking about their memories of the public pool when they were kids, and Jay is staring at this naked man who is claiming, making his presence known, tainting her childhood house with his dominant presence, letting it all hang out on the roof. So if we remember when Yara was talking about the idea of your house crumbling and you just want to close your eyes, Jay is not closing her eyes to what is happening to her house. She's going to stare right at this ugly ass but naked man as they pull away, because she's well aware of what's happening to her house. So they get to the public pool. They've brought a bunch of appliances with them. They're plugging them in all around the pool. There's lots of lamps, tons of sources of light. There's toaster, typewriter, crock pot, clock radio. These appliances all look very old, well-worn, and used. Obviously, their plan is crude and not very well thought out. It's something a kid would think up. And they brought along a bunch of things that happen to be comfort items from home, as if they're trying to bring the things that brought them comfort, that fed them, that gave them information, that helped them out, the lamps that actually provided light to them so they could see during their childhood. This is what they brought into the situation in the pool. It's such a stupid plan, but if you think about it from why they've chosen these things and where they're coming from in their childlike thinking, it makes perfect sense. So Jay enters the pool willingly. She's going to use herself as bait. The pool in the backyard was no longer an option because it was destroyed. So again, she is trying to return to a pool, one that is familiar, that she's been in before, something from her childhood, from her past, to help her navigate the current problem. This combined with the household appliances is obviously not going to work to us, but we understand why they've come up with this plan if we're thinking about it this way. It doesn't seem like this is the stupidest decision a bunch of teenagers in a horror movie ever made. We get it now. We understand why they're coming up with the plan that they're coming up with. They are not prepared, and they're working with all they know, the best that they can. These are the tools in their tool belt, which is really a sad position for them to be in. The pool is much larger now than the one in the backyard. The idea that she is no longer a big fish in her comfortable small pond. She is in a much larger pond now, and she's in real danger. So Jay sees it enter the room and specifically says that she does not want to tell Kelly who it is appearing as. In a couple of moments, we'll find out it's because it is their father. It has entered the room where the pool is as their father, and their plan is to lure it into the water. Then we assume Jay would quickly get out. They would throw all these appliances that are plugged in, and it would electrocute it and kill it, right? Because I guess this is just a giant bathtub and we're going to drop a toaster in it or a radio. That's what they're thinking. Clearly that's not going to work. This is a very large body of water. It's a childish plan that they've come up with. So it comes in and it picks up one of the appliances that is plugged in, throws it into the water. Thankfully, they now realize their plan isn't going to work because it doesn't electrocute the giant swimming pool. Jay does not get electrocuted. However, now it is going to start picking up the appliances and throwing them at Jay. This thing is picking up the things she brought with her from her childhood, from her home, the things that brought her comfort, and using them against her by physically throwing them at her. We glimpse from her perspective that it is indeed their absent father. The fact that he was absent, he is using his presence to unsettle and upset her, and then he's picking up the things that were there for her and using them against her. The visualization of that idea is just, it's genius to me. So at this point, Paul adjusts his plan. He asks Jay to point at it, and he's got the gun. He's trying to shoot at it. However, he doesn't know what he's doing, and he accidentally hits Yara in the leg. Kelly then throws a sheet over its head, so now we can see the outline of it. And at this point, it looks like some sort of Scooby-Doo villain, right? Like you're going to put a sheet over yourself and cut holes for eyes and be a ghost. But it's actually kind of smart because now they can physically see where it is. Paul shoots it directly through the head. It falls into the water. It is not dead, however, because it grabs Jay and pulls her under. Jay's absent father is now literally pulling her down and causing her to drown. The idea that the absent parent or the parent who did not impart the wisdom that you need to you as a kid physically holding you down and causing you to drown under the realities and weight of the real world. Hello. Like, it's so obvious to me at this point what the message is and what this is representing. It's so metaphorical. It's so allegorical. It just like the T.S. Eliot poem, just like The Idiot. Like, come on, how can you not be picking up what Mitchell is putting down at this point? It's so obvious to me. So Jay escapes his clutches and manages to get out of the pool. When she looks to see, is he in there? Is it dead? All she sees is that the pool is just filling up with bright red blood. So unclear, excuse the pun, on whether it worked, whether it's dead or not. So back at their house, just in case it didn't work, Jay is going to go ahead and have sex with Paul. This time, it's different than when she had sex with Greg because there is kissing involved. There's eye contact. It appears that she is somewhat enjoying herself. this is just a really sweet moment. Obviously, this is a connection between the two of them, and from Paul's point of view, it's been a long time coming. Maybe she's making more of an adult decision with her sexuality. She is using sex as a way to connect with someone who is a healthy, good choice, who is an uplifting, supportive person in her life. She's making a very adult decision, finally, when it comes to sex. So after that, we see Paul driving. He's in the city alone. He doesn't have to cross 8 Mile in a group setting anymore. He's now out there by himself, so he maybe has picked up on some of the maturity and wisdom and is now venturing out into the scary adult world by himself. He's looking at a couple of prostitutes. Clearly, we don't have to see it to know what he's considering doing, passing it on to someone random who will then pass it on to a lot of people. It's a smart decision that he is pondering here. Then we see that Yara's in the hospital. Paul and Jay are there. Yara's reading from The Idiot aloud again. Obviously, at this point in the game, Yara understands what she's reading a lot better than she did at the beginning when she said she didn't understand it. She chooses to read aloud a section that is very relevant to the moment. And she talks about how the most terrible agony isn't in physical wounds, but in knowing that your soul will leave your body and you will die. That death is certain. This is Yara's way of once again bringing the idiot back in case you missed it the first time around, that's what this is all really about. She's expressing that she has learned and grown and she understands it now, so much so that she feels a need to share a little bit of this information and knowledge with her friends. And the part she chooses to share is something that is very poignant and relevant. She is lying in a hospital bed because she's physically wounded, but the pain and uncertainty that Jay, and now Paul as well, are dealing with is more painful than her physical wounds, and she recognizes that. This is a really beautiful moment that shows you they are all learning, they are all on a path, they're sharing what they're learning with each other, and they're all growing together because of it. So that's a really beautiful thing to see, that she is understanding it better now. So then we see the final couple of shots of the movie here. Jay and Paul are walking hand in hand. Jay said, right after she had sex with Hugh, when she thought about becoming a teenager and how much fun it would be and being an adult, really all she wanted was to hold hands with a boy. So finally, as an adult, she followed a more mature line of thought and ended up with someone to simply hold hands with. He's a good choice for her. He's loving, caring, supportive. He likes her for who she is. He likes her the way she is. She's starting to see the value in him as a person and the value that being together brings to both of their lives. They're comfortable, they're happy, walking hand in hand. Her childhood dream has been realized. So the leaves of fall, again, they were relevant before because they were a sign of the transition. They're now cleaned up, and we see neighbors raking them up and clearing them out of the way because that time of transition is starting to end. They are firmly on the path of becoming adults in the real world. So this is seems to me to be the first time that you're seeing twilight as a time of day. It's always either broad daylight, whether it's overcast or sunny, it's always daytime or it's been very dark nighttime. We're seeing this in between time of day, which is my personal favorite time of day. The colors of sunset and sunrise are beautiful. That's when we're seeing they're walking now hand in hand during this time of transition, and the world just looks more colorful and beautiful because they're not adults, they're not children, they're in between, and that's exactly where they belong. So we see a random person following them in the distance. There's no camera panning away where we're stuck on this shot and we're fully aware that there was a person approaching them from behind. However, they don't seem terribly preoccupied or bothered by it. It's not that they're unaware this is a danger to them. They're just not wasting their time in this moment being afraid of it. They came together by understanding that they didn't have all the answers and that that's okay. Having someone to hold your hand and share the potential danger, share the burden with, just makes the world seem less threatening. So I'm hoping that you might want to give this movie another watch now that you potentially have the tools to see it a different way. If you were not originally a fan of it, that is. Go ahead and give it another try, and I hope you enjoy your swim. This is Nikki Flixx. Thanks for listening.
Hey listeners, Movie Miss here. Listen, I know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so thank you for listening to the show. I know everybody says this, but for a fledgling little show like ours that's just hanging on, we just finished season 4, we're rolling into season 5, it would really help us if you could subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Good Pods. We're also on Pandora, Audible, Amazon Music. It would really help us grow the show and reach more people if you could subscribe and then rate and review, which is really the key part of it. Make sure to be part of our bad movie conversation by following us on social media. Interact with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Movie Miss, which is movie_miss. The show is on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys. Also on Blue Sky at Let's Talk Turkeys and Facebook. We're on X. I'm honestly not sure how much longer I'm going to have the show on there, but currently the handle is at Gobble Podcast. Get it? Gobble, 'cause like a turkey. You can also chat with like-minded bad movie lovers in our Facebook discussion group. And like I mentioned, we're rolling into season 5. It is 2025. The show, it's been a wild ride, still going strong. So if you have a movie that you would like to hear covered on the show, let me know by emailing direct at letstalkturkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com. Also, hit me up on socials if you want to be a guest on the show. Always looking for guests. I can assign you a movie, something we think is fun, or you can bring a movie that you think is a bad movie if it has a low Rotten Tomatoes score, or you just really don't like the movie, but you like to talk about it. That's half the fun, I think. Again, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Without you, the show wouldn't still be kicking around. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
I'll be back.
Get the fuck out of here! No, I cannot!
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Why don't you get the fuck out of here? Get the fuck out of here. Oh, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Victor.